Okay, what do we got here? I hope I got the right one. So, this is only the second game I'm playing out of the original Flying Colors. Coming around to the right time frame here. March 1781, this one fits in there. Then we go back to Ship of the Line for a few more before we get to the next one here with Virginia Capes. Whatever. They interleave. Unfortunately, when I sorted my ships, I didn't successfully interleave them, so it was kind of hard to find some of them because some of them were out of place. It was hard to find my position, but it was worse to find some ships that kind of ended up in the wrong stacks. But that's okay. This one is, let's take a look at what we got. Early April, a small French force sailed from Newport, Rhode Island, with reinforcements for Lafayette. The British scramble an intercepting force. The fleets meet off Cape Henry, the mouth of the Chesapeake. The French turn to fight rather than being hit while unloading troops. The French have the audacity here. It's only 8 turns. 2 maps. And owing to particularly high seas and heavy weather during this battle, any ship that fires with the wind reduces its firepower by 2 in addition to any other modifiers. I'm not sure why in particular that would only affect firing with the wind and not... You'd think firing against the wind would be the problem, no? I don't know. But I'm not a person to answer such questions. We have to put our turn marker and our wind marker, which looks like it's heading direction 6, which is actually this way. That matches this. And it's breezy, which adds some additional speed, etc. But we've got 2 columns facing each other. This should be nice and straightforward. It's a short game. Might be a chance that they make it through without breaking. Maybe. But again, the Brits are going to have a huge advantage because of their inherent... Well, the French have the audacity this time. That might help. Let's see, we got a second raider here for the Brits. And I think we got one for the French too, fairly even. We got one of these little puny guys here, which the Brits have to ignore until it hurts. Yeah, the first round. The English have chosen to have full sails up. The French chose not to because the wind is more in their favor. They're reaching, whereas the English are beating. This sort of looks like it's just going to be this pass-by, the 2 squadrons just sailing by each other. The question, of course, is jockeying for wind position. The French did little turns and worked their way, costing themselves a decent amount of movement points to try to gain the advantage. Of course, with this scenario's special rules, reducing firepower by 2, firing into the wind, or with the wind, they may be making the mistake. They probably actually want to side slip and shoot up the rigging of the English ships. The problem is there's not a lot of game here. There's only 8 turns. We're on turn 2 now. And there's just not going to be enough time, I think, for a drag-out fight. It's going to be this passing by and shooting each other up. We'll see, but with my breaking squadron or formation rules that Mike suggested, this isn't going to turn into that kind of chaos ball that might actually cause significant damage. I'm all for that. I hate those things. So I'd rather see 2 columns pass each other by and shoot each other up. But I got to be kind of careful. And the French definitely trying to get the wind advantage in this. It doesn't make sense because of that. I forgot that rule, what I was doing. Entering turn 3 here, we see the initial engagement. And really, I've moved all the fleets. The English have kept their tail end under full sail. But here, just an exchange of fire. The English actually fire at the hull. They've got a 2-point disadvantage, which makes up for their first broadside. But the French have taken the position above the wind. That means the English can turn and cut through the French position, which is going to be painful. That's the reason I kind of wanted to have the wind in my favor as the French. But with the rigging advantage, well, I'm shooting up the English rigging, and the French have taken only 3 hull hits from the exchange. Basically, my feeling is if I can wreck enough of the movement capacity of the English, it doesn't matter too much if I allow them a slight tactical advantage. But I don't know. I'm just testing things out, basically, as usual. We're at the end of 3 turns. The English are beginning to turn their rear squadron to try to sheath the French, hit them from both sides. Why? You know, that's a good question. I just want to hammer these ships. We already got this one on fire and crippled. It's in pretty bad shape there. I haven't done the end of turn activities yet. On the English side, though, for whatever it's worth, we got some damaged rigging there, but we got one dismasted at the front. That's not quite as bad as being crippled in my view. Although the crippled ship is not vulnerable, whereas this thing could conceivably strike, except our commanding officer is too good, I think. Dismasted means I need a 6. Got no audacity, but I got a 2 commander, so there's actually a chance this thing could strike. Let's take a look at the fire. Seen some right here. The French extinguish it, but take a rigging hit. Find one. Not that their rigging's getting shot. And checks for strikes. This thing, although damaged, is not crippled. It seems obvious it's easier to dismast a ship than cripple one. So let's check for the strike on this. Without the great leaders or whatever, the English only have a 2-point advantage. So if I roll an 8 or a 9, I get them. But I don't. Alright, well, we're moving into this next turn and seeing what happens. I mean, you know, it's all he can hope for. The English got the initiative this time. And they want to go first. And explain their thinking on this, because this is kind of weird. They got these guys that they left in full sail. The French, they probably should have stripped those sails off. But they do want the extra movement. Especially these guys are going to have a lot, but they want to keep their formation close together too, so they don't want to run too far ahead. So it depends on where these guys end up. But what they want to do is move into place and drop their full sails without firing. That's going to allow the French to pass by them, and they'll get shots at some of the French ships that they would not, they'd get a penalty for if they fired with their full sails. The problem with it, well, as they pass by the French ships, they're going to get shot up. They're hoping those full sails are targets enough to try to bring the masts down, but, well, you don't want to lose too many masts. That will fit with the French tactic. On the other hand, the French have the wind going with them. That gives them some penalties to firing and some other factors, all of which maybe provide some protection to those English. See, when the French front column, or front part of the column, has to kind of run the gauntlet between 2 sets of English ships. Now, the French may not choose to pass by these guys and just cut the bow on this. Definitely a painful incident for the French, but they drifted this lead ship, which was already crippled. I didn't want to run into a bow rake there against. This one would have bow raked me as I came across its bow. So instead I turned with the wind so that I'm running and went for a stern rake here, which I didn't get. You can see this guy is on fire and crippled now. That's the Jason. It's not in good shape terribly either. But the Duc de Bourgogne was kind of the valuable one. It sailed past this, took the fire of the dismasted ship, and then lit up the rigging on the next ship. And that's, you know, opening things up so that the next line can shoot up. We're hoping to dismast enough English ships that we have a numerical advantage even with our damaged ships, because it is a little easier to dismass than to sink. It's about equivalent to damage. And then the remaining French ships can kind of fight on equal terms with the mobile English ships. It's hard to defend around those dismasted ships or something. It's not like, you know, you can stay mobile, you can stay static in a naval battle. But yeah, running through here was painful, but now on the clean side, these guys get to start coming up too. The shot from one side's already been taken. Where the French are going to go, well, turning this way kind of indicates they're going to try to slip around and envelop this in two directions. Example of why formation rules are tough. This guy is dismasted, can't move. Other ships had to avoid him. Now, I wouldn't necessarily have had to keep them in formation based on the disruption that this creates, but I've done so by turning them all in this direction. That wasn't a necessity, but it's possible that, you know, basically I could turn back and try to form that line again to attack later. Right now, though, it seems reasonable to keep them in a little squadron and push through. Now the French have pulled up in some rake action on the Europe. It was actually successful. You can see, well, they're penalized in terms of total gunfire at this point, but nothing too exciting there. The rest of the French line coming up. Trying to stay away from this dismasted ship. Basically, I don't want to give it good shots. It's got problems. As long as I can avoid it and shoot other things, I can get myself into better position here. We are entering the 5th turn, which means it'll be a wind change check. If I can find the table. It's +1 for breezy. We're going to go a point clockwise. Tick, 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 tick. Which changes some of the alignments a little bit. We're now beating with the French, which they may want to change that, and well, it looks like they are actually. All right. Well, the French won the initiative this time, and it's pretty close to tied in terms of the English have a +1 on the initiative, but the French have kind of a +1/2 in that they win the audacity tiebreaker. The French winning this initiative means that they can continue this path through here and get these double rakes if they desire. With the wind having changed, they're no longer taking the penalty for firing with the wind at this ship. I think the wind had been going like this before. No, it had been going like this. So they weren't taking it anyway. But now they're going to be taking the potential of maybe not wanting to take that bow rake and instead take the advantage of the against the wind bonuses for rigging fire. Remember, they've done quite a bit of rigging fire to these guys. That really limits the British chances of maneuvering, and if they can take down masts, I believe that counts for victory conditions. Nothing less than that does, of course. You know, nothing less than sunk or damaged or captured is worth anything either. But you can kind of assess what the field looks like afterwards. But the problem there is, of course, it doesn't help make the British run away. And that might be enough of a reason to try for these bow rakes as well. I think it's a shame that my format doesn't capture everything, although those would be humongous amounts of video going up. But in this case, the Jason sails up, takes fire here from the America, which is, if you kind of imagine it going, you know, in a simultaneous type situation, this is probably at the same time that the Concordian is blasting through the rear of the America and also trying to hit the Adamant, which it's actually done quite a bit of successful damage on as well with a lucky shot. And now the Jason slides around to the aft and is firing both of its guns on, and you're going to kind of watch the line as they're coming by, and just, you know, cycling these fires going through as it goes. It's an exciting picture if you can really get into it. If I were videoing the whole thing and talking about the whole thing, I wouldn't be getting into it though, so I wouldn't be having as much fun. But you can kind of imagine that enjoyment as you're moving through and firing. There's a neat situation available for these English that I'm going to activate next. Getting rakes on this ship. They've got to ignore this one, but I've got 3 ships here, all of which can rake the crap out of that poor thing. And then if they turn, well, it depends on which way, but 2 of them are going to be using their port side guns. If they turn, they'll have their starboard guns facing this way. The rest of the formation's got to turn too, or else break formation. And so they'll have a couple of ships that get to refire. I gotta let this sucker just sail right past my dismasted ship, though. English didn't have enough sailing capacity to sweep this ship across, but they're still in formation here. However, you can see they're taking some serious rigging hits across the board. This guy's also at 9 hits. However, the cost, they've wrecked the Neptune. It's not close to capitulating yet, but there's this nice trade-off. And the other thing is the French ships have to run the gauntlet of these English ships coming through. Of course, in doing so, they'll probably end up dismasting the rest of the English squadron up there. Is this guy? No, that's a... Yeah, we got some injuries among the captains too. But yeah, the hope is to have a significantly greater number of mobile ships and then take the fight to the mobile English ships, which will have a hard time, you know, sailing under the guns of the the immobile ones. The exchange on that, though, is, again, it's more likely for the French fleet to break because they will more likely end up striking first. You got the Jason, and I may actually have to withdraw damaged ships just to be careful. This is kind of a neat situation for the French because this pass-by thing allows them a chance to regroup in a way that most of the scenarios haven't really given them that chance. So the shooting at the rigging hasn't worked well for them because they end up in this either chaos or where they're firing and where they're facing more and more English ships. Here they've actually got the ability to knock a few of them out of the battle by dismasting and then go on further to hit other ships. I gotta mark who went where and try to remember that. So it's this French squadron and this front English squadron. I don't think the rear squadron's gone, which means the divide is here now, I think. Because this guy just fired. Why have these guys fired? They fired at the French ship sailing by him. I'm trying to remember because I walk away between actions, essentially. Brave little Romulus here slid across the bow and the aft of this one, getting rakes on both, set the Europe here on fire, and crippled it too. I haven't marked it crippled yet. Still got a couple more of these ships coming through. This was just a matter of, hey, you know, I'm not going to go for rigging hits if I can get some really good shots in like that. The French, a troubling situation where they actually, the command ship somehow ran out ahead and the other ships, I don't know what happened. I forgot to roll for a command roll for this guy. I rolled for this guy so that he could try to do what he did, another rake here. But this one went for the rigging and he just missed taking it all down. Which is a pity because that means this sucker's going to be able to turn into position to fire. But it totally disrupted the French line there, which, you know, there's going to be a price to pay for that. Now we're down to one last English command, which is, I think, this line here, up to here, I guess. It's hard to understand what's going on. Should this have been part of it? I don't know. I don't think so, because I've got commanders on both sides. I guess I moved this one. Who the hell knows? And this is the problem. You know, unless you mark every ship, whether it's moved or not, it's hard to tell where your commands really are. These little markers just don't do it. And that's still the one issue that I have with the designation in the game. If I had cards per ship, I could deal the cards away to little moved and not moved piles or something like that, maybe. I don't know. Or put a mark on the cards, or put a mark on this if it was in a plastic thing that I could erase that. But I just haven't come up with the technological solution to this problem. It's not that one doesn't exist. I can think of several. It's just I don't have one that I've been willing to attempt other than these little counters, and these little counters don't. Position at the end of turn 5. We move into turn 6 up here. I can take these anchors off. That English final squadron slid through. You can see I had to make some kind of weird decisions. So I'm trying to maintain a line ahead formation, but this guy couldn't catch up to it and had an opportunity movement. He'll still be in command this way. So I kind of allow it, and you can see where all the fuzziness starts coming in. If you start allowing ships to slide over and do that and break that line formation, well, you're going to start getting closer and closer to this kind of situation where ships just fall out of formation. I should have had to roll a die there. I didn't bother again. I'm just not sure how much I believe in that. Anyway, I wish I could figure out, a level that I was accepting of, but with the official rules to back me up, to kind of say, no, you don't have to worry about this. It's very hard for me to just say, damn it, this is how it should be, because I feel like I'm putting additional restrictions in that may be beyond what should be allowed. So, maybe this should be allowed to happen here. Anyway, he managed to light the crap up out of this thing, taking an almost undamaged ship to a crippled position all in one big after rake. Over here you'll see that Jason actually turned vulnerable, although they put out their fire. This one's got a fire. This one, the English have more of a risk of striking now because my main admiral here, no, that's not him. I lied. That's my main admiral. And likewise, the French main admiral is fine. Anyway, oh, no, he's not. He's down a point. Okay, so actually the French have more of a chance of striking at this point because they've taken a casualty on their flag admiral. Anyway, I got the die rolls were fine this time. The French are hoping not to see a strike because their only way of winning, well, unless the British strike, their only way of winning this is to outlast, but they're the ones taking the hull hits, so they're in the more danger of it. We'll see how this works out. The Jason's going to try to get away. I don't think I have to roll a command check to try to get a ship out of formation if it's just trying to preserve itself. Again, continuously bending, these attempted restrictions on myself. Now it's turning into a tangled mess where it's hard to keep the story in line. The English ships here kind of slip by, beating up on that poor little defenseless frigate there or whatever, but also sliding across the bow of both these ships, firing at the Duke. As it went by, took some shots at this one, rigging shots actually. I'm holding off for a possible aft rake on him, but really this rear squadron here is really shot up pretty badly for the French. And the problem is some of them at least have to be used. For example, the Duke is not damaged yet, but it's going to be damaged if I bring it into play. But some of the others, the Ardent and the Jason, are both vulnerable, and I kind of want to detach them from the battle a little bit. They still have a chance of striking colors, no matter what I do with them. If I pull them off board, if I leave them on board and they strike, that's going to give me the chance of a break. So I've got to keep them in the general area of the battle, but I don't want them to actually get shot up worse than they already are. What we have left, well, the French started things off by moving this ship through here. This was an out-of-command ship. The English wanted the next activation, so now I've got to decide one of the French activations. Unfortunately, I only really have one. I have this column here, and then I have a loose ship from it. I can't really define this as a column Like, under the normal rules, this couldn't be defined at all. I'm defining it as a column because it's been maintaining that all along. So I can't include this, but this has a leader. Unfortunately, the leader of this whole remains of the column back here. I think the French are in some trouble because of the allowing their command to kind of fall apart. The English can handle that, the way they're sitting. A couple of French ships have struck colors. This one actually made the roll to strike, but then I noticed he's more than 5 hexes away, and dismasted means you're a little bit less willing to strike otherwise. The fact that we have ships that have struck means that we have to go to the break-off check. I actually have the modifiers here. The opposing fleet, I think, has double the unbroken, undamaged ships. 1, 2, 3. You know, he has 6. One of them's the dismasted ship, and that's something I want to look up. Does that count towards this? It feels like it shouldn't, but oh, the T-rateds don't count. Yeah, I think I've got 2 to 1 on that, so we'll give them that penalty. So -2 to the French, plus the Audacity puts them to -1. And the Admiral is neither dead nor captured. So right now we're at a -1. We need a 0 or a 1 to break. And we don't get it, which means we'll be going another turn. And that leaves us to 2 more. This is turn 7. So I just got a full dose of chaos here. The English squadron's command was decided to be pretty much all the ships under one commander. The French made a mistake by taking one ship and moving it separately from the rest of the squadron, I believe. Well, I know that's what they did, but I believe that was a mistake. They moved that one ship, and then the entirety of the English squadron slid through and just lit up, engaging fire all across here. I mean, I had to have at least 8-10 fire events in this cluster on one action for the English. Essentially, every English ship has activated, though, including the dismasted one, I guess, because he was in range too. So now the French get to go with everything except this ship. And even their out-of-command ships, well, I think they've already shot their wads, but they would have been able to fire. Because this was just such a tangled situation that they are adjacent to people now. All right, let's see what I can do with the French to try to extricate them, but it doesn't look good. The French ship finally went belly up over here. I forgot to check the... I don't know, the Jason's not so damaged that it can go under. And a number of... Oh, another one. 2 of them went under. And the French have a 2-point leader. 1 point of Audacity is 3. They're losing 2. I think they actually don't have a chance. Oh no, they only have a 1-point leader here. Shit, I don't know who their commander is. He escaped. Yeah, this guy's the commander. So I think there's only a 1 in 10 chance, actually, because I've got, let's see, twice as many opposing undamaged ships still as -2, -1. Oh no, the Admiral doesn't count in. So yeah, it's still a 0 or 1. The French were hoping to cripple some English ships, but they're at such a disadvantage at shooting for Hull. And with the wind rule, the special rule here, they can't even get the +1 on the die roll without taking a -2 to their to-hit chart. For the English, it's often worth getting that +2 for the -2 on the chart. It works out that it isn't that big an expense, especially if you're getting a possible rake. But for the French, it's a lot tougher in this scenario because of the wind. And the French stay in there. So we're moving into the last turn of the game. The French don't have much of a chance of winning by victory points either, though. They've got damaged and wrecked ships, sunk ships. It just doesn't look like they have much going for them. And they can't even escape from this scenario if that was a possibility, which it isn't. There's just, they're in the middle of the map, right? And we're playing with floating map. But if they had wanted to fully escape, ships which tried to escape, which floated off the map somehow, would end up counting as if they were damaged anyhow for the victory conditions, because they have the audacity advantage here. And it is not doing them a bunch of good. At the start of this 8th turn, I moved the rear British squadron. They won the initiative first. One ship sliding through, doing quite a bit of movement, but most of the rest are just so bogged down by the rigging hits that they aren't able to do much. So it looks to me like the English aren't going to be able to score many more points. The question is, can the French do anything? I don't know. Guess we'll find out. The French are, I think, in 2 commands, one back here and one up here. So I got to kind of think this command probably doesn't want to move yet. Well, see, it's the one that can actually affect anything. Now this ship, it's not going to hit. This one, I'm out of fire, so yeah, I'll move these guys first. French have some hard choices. For one thing, they could, as they did here, try to dismast a ship. Now they got a kind of lucky shot there, doing 2 rigging hits at that range. I'm hoping another ship will get a shot at that, but I don't think that's going to happen. And even if I do dismast it, there's still not much chance that it's going to actually strike, which is the only thing that'll affect this, is the strike chance and then the possibility of a surrender by the of a break by the English. So that wasn't too helpful, but I'm shooting up something that's so big. The London here has 15 hits available, and it's not that badly damaged. One thing is, how much should your opponent know about the damage that he's done to you? Obviously, the information could be completely open, but on the other hand, there's kind of this desire to not give all that information, but you kind of wish you could see how shot up it was. That's one thing I kind of like with SFB is you show the ship chart at kind of a distance, you know, like to here, yeah, this is how shot up I am. And you can see how badly hit a ship is, whether or not, you know, you don't have to count every box on it or anything. But here you get sort of almost a perfect information if you get any information. Of course, you have the question between whether it's crippled or not, but you should be able to know whether a ship's unhit. And, well, but this one got kind of lucky. Shooting up, I don't know what is that, the adamant. You can see it's got very, very few hits, and with like 1 hit I drove it over that 7 and managed, or maybe 2, and managed to cripple it. So there's some bonus points right in there. But now the English get to go with their second part of the squadron, which is these ships back here. This one's actually moved. I just didn't mark it, but it doesn't matter. It's not really in play. Nobody's going to get close enough. Some more potential scoring. Knocked another cripple into place here for the French, and also knocked down the masts on the Royal Oak, and wounded but didn't kill their leader. That's not worth anything, although it does affect the strike chances, so it could affect things. We'll see, but that's the end of it. French kind of peeling off this way. The English, well, they'll probably hold the area and maybe be able to pick up this struck ship. Well, the battle's kind of running away. This is kind of a weird thing, because it is possible for a struck ship to kind of say, we didn't really mean that, but not in the game system. But I mean, if the enemy sort of goes away, maybe honor has them bound to stick around for a little while, because otherwise terrible things might be taken as retribution. But you know, if the enemy sails away largely, following and chasing the French, they're not going to stick around there. they're going to put their rigging up and set sail. They're not in that bad a shape, other than they're crippled. Obviously, the hull's badly damaged, but you know, a ship can still be repaired sometimes. And we got one more French ship struck here, Neptune. That's a big one. But the Royal Oak, in almost perfect situation, but dismasted, it also struck. It's time for me to count the points, try to assess what it is in terms of just the value of the game, and try to make some sense out of this, because honestly, why is the battle ending at this point? You know, one side or the other should be leaving. I haven't made a break check yet. We should at least do that. All right, let's see. We've got 1, 2, 3 non-rect English and no non-rect French. But the English have struck in a couple of cases, which means both sides are vulnerable. So let's see. For the French, they've got a -2, -1. So they're a 0 or 1. And for the English, they'll go on a 0. The English break. They're going to have a hard time getting out of here. The only thing they really have going for them is they've still got a lot of guns, but they don't have a lot of movement. And my feeling is if the English tried to flee under these circumstances, they're screwed. Their fleet has been crippled. I mean, this ship can get away. What is that? The adamant. But the others, you know, how are these guys going to get out of there? They've got a 2 movement point allowance. Now, are they in danger? Well, yeah, once they're dismasted, they're out of there. You can just kind of park the French ships to their aft and kind of try to maintain station there. And chances are the English will just never be able to get shots in. They can't anchor. It's presumably deep water. I'd say this looks like a pretty major French victory. I'm not going to even have to count points, it turns out. That's kind of cool. It would have been a close battle otherwise because the number of... there's a couple of English dismasted ships here that count as damaged, essentially, I believe. The struck ships don't count against anyone. Nobody actually captured them. But I would say the French probably won this one in a huge way. There's a couple English ships that could get away, or they could try to help defend these immobile ships. But you feel like the fact that they broke means they will try to get away. And the French will let these guys get away. They're going to have enough of a worry to try to capture the rest. Kind of cool. All right, let's send this one up.